Well, hello there. If you're watching this, it means I followed my dream. I'm recording this video well before I've bought my camper van. It's, what are we? November 2021. It's just after the end of the second COVID outbreak in Australia. I'm recording this because in about 6 months I'm planning to quit my job, buy a camper van and travel around Australia. Hey guys, welcome back to Adventures with Mitzi. I'm Aaron, and today we've got a bit of a side episode for episode 6. We are going to be talking about why I moved into a van and why I chose van life. As a backdrop, I decided to do one of my favourite walks in Adelaide, and that's the Anstey Hill walk, following the outer track here, and we should stop past the quarry as well, which would be cool for some drone footage. Let's get on the trail and have a little chit chat. One of the questions I get asked a lot when I tell people I live in a van is, why van life? It took me a while to get to that choice, and I guess to answer that question I sort of have to delve into my history a little bit. And I think that's why it's taken me a few videos to make this video, because it's not easy to put your personal life out on the internet and expose your really personal choices, which I feel like van life is a really personal choice. I guess to answer the question, I have to sort of go back to when I was a kid. I spent my summers growing up in a small country town by the beach. Me and my two closest friends would go seeking adventure, making up our own stories. And I always had sort of a sense of adventure, And then when I started my study years after school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I did what a lot of people do, and I chased money. Me and my partner at the time moved out, and then she fell pregnant with my daughter. I was 21 at the time. There wasn't really a question about what I wanted at that point in time. It was about my kids. I spent a lot of time being poor, trying to pay the bills, trying to feed everybody, and that took up a lot of my life while the kids were growing up. And at the time I was living in Sydney. I think life kind of just took over. When my kids came around, they were my focus. What I wanted wasn't really as important anymore. So in this series, I want to talk about what it's like to live in a van. Given that this is the first time I'm doing this, I want to use this time to just talk about Adventures with Mitzi and what I want to do with the channel, and also talk about what made me choose van life. Quite a lot happened in my life leading up to me moving into a van. The most poignant part of that was the second COVID outbreak in Australia. I was in Sydney at the time, and I was living in a house which was in one of the 5k radius lockdowns. We were locked down for about 5 months, me and my partner at the time. It kind of caused, I guess, a bit of a midlife crisis for me. I was trying to record this before Adelaide's had some poor weather, and I was trying to record while I was walking, but there were so many people out today enjoying the nice weather that I didn't really feel comfortable talking about my life, which is a bit strange seeing as I'm publishing this on YouTube. So COVID came around. It was the second outbreak, the second lockdown. I was locked down in a house for 5 months. I was overweight at the time, about 20 kilos heavier than I am now. I was just miserable. I had lost the joy in life. I'd lost the excitement. I spent my time working and trying to save, and eventually bought a house in Sydney, and I thought at the time that was what I wanted. I came to a point in life where, it's hard to say, but I wasn't suicidal, but there was a point where I fantasized about being hit by a car, so I just couldn't get to work in the morning, and just having some downtime. It's like everybody. I mean, we work jobs, we have 4 weeks a year to live our life, and it just wasn't enough for me. It came to a point where I wasn't excited about traveling anymore. Even holidays didn't excite me at the time. It was a very hard time for me, but it was a very hard time for everybody. And I think a lot of people can relate about that feeling of wanting freedom. So I guess what made me choose van life? Freedom. I've always wanted freedom, and I used to think it was about running away from responsibility and the things that I had to take care of, but I've realized now that wanting freedom for me is having the ability to get in the van and go wherever I want to, whenever I want to. Being financially free is another reason. Having a van and living out a van is much cheaper than renting, and as I'm sure everybody knows, rent is so expensive now and the cost of living is going up. So choosing a van has given me a lot more freedom. It came to a point where I was just absolutely miserable. Towards the end of COVID, I broke up with my partner at the time, who I owned a house with. It was a really hard decision to make, and I think in a lot of ways I was happy in that relationship, but we just wanted different things, very different things, and I thought at the time that compromising was the way I should live my life, and I realized it wasn't. I realized compromising for everybody else and not thinking about what I really wanted and how I really wanted to live was being safe. After my breakup with my ex, I spent a lot of time walking and thinking about, I guess, how I'd got into that position in my life. And at the time, I hadn't thought about van life. I was watching a channel, Mossy Bottom, and there was a few other channels. Mossy Bottom's about a guy who was an accountant for many years, and then he sold up and went up to Northern Ireland to live in a cottage, completely self-contained and self-sufficient. Just looking at those channels just made me think, why can't I do that? And I realized the kids had finished school. Daughter's in uni now, my son's at the end of high school, and they've got good supports in Sydney. They don't really need me there all of the time. They've got their own lives. They've got friends in Sydney who need house sitters, can travel there over, the Christmas period. So this life just gives me the freedom to do the things that I want to do. It's not always easy. Living in a van can be hard at times. When I got COVID, it was just after my daughter's 18th birthday, 40 degrees, and I was in the back of the van, sweating and climbing in and out of the van to go to the bathroom and just struggling. And that was one of my biggest fears when I moved in the van. One was to go broke and the other was to get COVID. And both things happened. And I realized having your biggest fears come true is so liberating. You have to face them. And I went through some dark times when I first came to Adelaide at the start of the year. I was flat broke. I had to apply for settling. It took me, months to find a job. I was lucky I had the support of my mum and David to get through that time. But it wasn't easy. I think spending all last year traveling far north Queensland in the van made me realize I can tackle anything that could go wrong. The engine blew up on Mitzi in Bundaberg, and that was the last of the money that I had saved. And I had to crawl to Adelaide, but I still made sure that I took my kids down the Great Ocean Road. I still made sure that I did everything that I planned to do. Even though I knew that I would end up in Adelaide in a position where I had no money left, I knew that experiences and those moments were way more valuable than money. And now I have a job, I'm working again, I'm saving again, I'm planning for the next trip, I'm planning for the next adventure, and I have more confidence in myself for making those choices. The one thing with the channel that I really want to do is try and inspire people to be brave and to really question why they can't do the things they want to do. And that one thing I want to do is be here to tell you that I followed a dream and I have no regrets. Despite all the things that have gone wrong, despite all the challenges that I faced, Mitzi's broken down like 3 times since I started with the engine blowing up, and I still have no regrets. I'm here to show you that you just need to take that first step. Be brave and find some of that childhood joy that you had in life. Even if you fail at doing what your dream is, you can always go back. But I think a lot of people live lives where they're stuck with these invisible walls of routine. And I think that's what this lifestyle is. There is no comfort. Each day is its own adventure, and you have to make decisions as you go. You have to solve problems as you go. That's really what I want to share with people. That's really what I want to give. The experience that you can do this. I'm just an ordinary guy. If you stayed this far, thanks very much for listening to me. It was not easy for me to share this. It's taken me a long time, I guess, to get my thoughts in order, to decide what I want to share. Not easy putting yourself out there, but if you stayed this far, thank you very much for listening. You're a legend. And until next time, stay kind, keep moving forward.